Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brownstone's Best Business Review. I'm Paulette. I am your host for today's business review, and we've got an amazing, lovely sister that is going to be hanging out with us today. And so I can't wait to bring her on and let you guys talk directly with her. But as you always know, we like to tell you who we're going to be talking to today. And her name is Jeannine K. Brown. She's the founder and chief executive officer at Everyday Lead, a consultancy providing talent development, diversity, equity, and inclusion services to corporations in various industries impacting many professions. Jeannine is an award-winning leader who advocates for increasing women and multicultural professionals into fulfilling executive leadership roles. She and her team at Everyday Lead help companies retain talent from intern to retirement who love their careers and the companies they work for. Now, listen, Jeannine is a dynamic speaker and transformational executive coach. Her solutions help clients expand their networks, leverage their skills to create value, increase compensation, and get profitable results. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, and without any further introduction from that amazing bio, we're going to bring up Jeannine K. Brown, and she's going to talk for herself. Hey, Jeannine, how are you?
Hi, Yvette. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So glad you could make it. Listen. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today because your bio is number one, amazing. Number two, you provide an amazing service and a resource for so many different corporations. So let's get started. Number one, what is Everyday Lead?
So, Everyday Lead is a vision that I had to create like a movement actually to inspire others to take an active role in their lives and lead every day, right? Just have this thing that they wake up in the morning. It's like, you know what? I'm in control of my destiny and I'm going to inspire others. And so that's where Everyday Lead was kind of born out of that. The name was kind of born out of that. But we are a consultancy that helps companies with retention and retaining high performing and high potential talent. And our goal is to help those folks learn, love what they do.
Yeah.
And love the companies they work for. And we do that through professional development, training, workshops, seminars, roundtables, focus groups. So we help companies curate in their organizations. We also provide executive coaching, and we help them design and communicate strategies related to retention through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
There's that word.
Yeah.
Ooh, I want to talk about all of this. So let's dissect some of this, shall we? It sounds like to me, I could be wrong, that the premise of your firm, your consultancy, has to do with, shall we say, employee engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let's start there, if you don't mind. When we're talking about going into a company, are we talking about only dealing with senior leadership? Are we talking about the human resource department? Are we talking about everybody that's in the firm? How does that work?
So our services are to help everyone in the company. So we say we start from the intern all the way to the executives, and we
Got it.
touch everyone in the company's ecosystem. Our goal, because the thing about training and any sort of learning material, if you only do it in one group, then it only impacts that one group. And then eventually it just kind of disappears. It becomes
Yeah.
like just an exercise in
Right.
spending 60 minutes or a half a day or a day with trainers and consultants. So our goal is to touch the entire ecosystem of companies so that everyone is talking the same language. They're having the same transformational experience around learning and building soft skills and power skills, so that if we're doing a session on psychological safety in the finance department, that the sales team understands those concepts as well. The HR and the learning and development team, the executives are aware of how employees are being impacted in the organization. If there's bad actors and
Right.
managers running folks
Right.
away, They
Yeah.
understand, oh, we're having a breakdown in our psychological safety.
Hmm.
The things that we learned in there, we need to kind of recalibrate. And so
Hmm.
for us, we touching everybody.
Wow. That's pretty good. And the reason why I say that is because most organizations, when I was in corporate, they only dealt with senior leadership. And I understand the premise behind that, that everything rolls downhill, if you will. And so if we can catch everybody at the senior leadership level, that it should definitely trickle down, based upon the trickle down theory that it should, but it doesn't always work that way, does it?
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. It
Okay.
doesn't. And
Okay.
sometimes, I think the executives, I get the premise of, oh, we want to keep making them better leaders, better people leaders, better managers of the work and visionaries.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is that the wheels turn at the bottom.
Yes,
And
they do.
so if the folks at the bottom are not doing well and they're not developing, they don't understand how to navigate their careers, they don't know how to be, create self-mastery for themselves so
Yep.
that they can become leaders, then
Mm.
you're going to have a breakdown in that 4 to 7 year range, because that's where you see all the turnover. And I think if companies made bigger investments and more consistent and sustainable investments in the
Yeah.
development of their people, they
Mhm.
will see a difference in the retention
Mhm.
in their organizations. They'll have more loyalty, they'll have more innovation,
Mhm.
better, just a whole better workforce, right? That hits the bottom line. So,
Right.
if your people are doing better and
Mhm.
learning new skills and learning and being more innovative and have the freedom
Mhm.
to dissent and have, discourse in the workplace, you're going to see it and hit your bottom line.
You are absolutely correct about that. Okay. So, everyday lead. And when I think about that, the first thing that I think about when I hear you talk about, with passion, of course, your firm, your consultancy, um, it is clear you have that background, that corporate background, right? That's clear.
Mhm.
What made you decide that you were going to step out on your own and do this? Because honestly, and I say this often with just about everybody that comes on, um, to serve, because this is what this is. You're serving people to be better, to open up and become their best selves, no matter where they are in their career. But why this for you?
The interesting thing is, I didn't have entrepreneurial aspirations.
Mm,
Maybe own, some rental properties, things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, I get you.
That's really about it. Um, and I and it just kind of fell in my lap. But I'll tell you, anybody who's thinking, like, when you start thinking about your life, and they give you these assessments at work, and you're doing all of these things, you're getting this knowledge, learning more
Mhm.
about yourself, right? So if you're at an organization, they give you Myers-Briggs, maybe a strength assessment,
Right.
some other things, DISC, whatever these assessments are. You go to training,
Yep.
but then you look at, like, where's your biggest impact in your organization?
Mhm.
And although I did great work, I had great clients when I was in consulting, my biggest impact was on people, both
Mm.
with my clients and my staff.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I didn't value it because I thought everybody had a great impact on people. And that,
Really?
yeah, girl, just naive. I did. I really thought, hey, once you get promoted and you're supervising people, you're managing teams, you're leading an organization, that everybody was focused on people first. I
Mhm.
was very people first, then
Mhm.
clients.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was really important for me to empower, to develop, to speak into, to edify
Yeah.
my teams and the people who work for me. And it was also most important that we have fun doing
Mhm.
the work together. And so what I recognize is that's what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
Who would have thought that
Right.
I would be doing that today? So, I had a very cerebral job. I was, I'm reading tax law all the time,
Mhm.
doing planning and strategy work
Mhm.
within the organizations that I work for. I moved
Yeah.
up into leadership really young
Mhm.
too. But it's interesting that I'm doing this now, and I really do love people. I'm very people vested, and I
Yeah.
believe that if we just properly equip people with the skills that they need,
Yeah.
both life and work,
Mm-hmm.
that they'll be better for it and you'll have better results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about better results, you're talking about from the business itself, right? Um,
Yeah, from the bit, but even interpersonal relationships.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
as a business owner and even working in corporate jobs, the biggest issues you typically have is the interpersonal relationships that people have
Mm-hmm.
within the organization.
Mm-hmm. It is. Absolutely. And so when you go into a business, let's talk about that just for a hot second. I'm going to clean my glasses because I'm about to get real deep real quick. Okay, hold on. So so first of all, I'm curious, how in the world do they find you?
It's interesting. So what I did was I stayed in the space that I came out of. So I came out of accounting and finance.
Yeah.
I worked in professional services at a public accounting firm.
Mm-hmm.
So fortunately for me, I was still very ingrained in that space. So I sat on boards of governing agencies, affinity groups like the National Association of Black Accountants, the Black MBAs. I
Got
had relationships with other affinity groups that focused
it.
on Latin American and
Mhm.
Asian American professionals. So I stayed in the accounting finance space.
Got it.
So the transition to do this work was I had relationships with some of these companies and the people who worked there who happened to be some of the buyers and partners. And because I demonstrated my competency from the technical standpoint of my former career that I have for about 15 years,
Mhm.
it was easy it wasn't easy. Let me not, let
Okay.
me take that
Okay.
back.
Okay.
It was a natural transition to be able to serve those companies because I
Yeah.
knew what their pain points were.
Got it.
I could speak the language of the firm. And it was really interesting is I've been in sessions, like large sessions, 100, 200, 300 employees, and where my firm is delivering a training on something. Say it's something like mindful living,
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And there are men in the room and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to be here. They're going to make me, meditate and things like that." They would flip over and read my bio and completely have a different perspective about the work that we're about to do. They're like,
Wow.
"Oh, so she has certification. She's a business professional. She's done
Right.
some therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist." Right. So
Mm.
I was able to make a quicker connection because they knew I understood their pain points.
I love that. And so knowing that you had this background where you already were a people person, people really enjoyed being around you, which is a gift and a curse, but a gift,
Yeah.
right? Because they can call you at the Miss Jeannine or hey Miss Brown, hey Jeannine, I really need to talk to you. That happens to people like us a lot. But let's get back to, so how do they find you? One. And number two, what are the questions like? Like, are you by referral, word of mouth? Do they find you through maybe, for instance, some type of, place, like you said, it's from folks that you knew. But then once they get to you, do they have to take an assessment to find out if they need you? Or they come to you already knowing, listen, Jeannine, we got a mess. We need you to come in with your cape on and we need you to come fix this.
Yeah. So we have three streams that people can find us. So first is we use public speaking, professional. I'm a professional speaker
Mm-hmm.
and I do a lot of keynotes at conferences. And
Mm-hmm.
that is our lead generation. So we get a lot of leads when I'm on stage, I'm
Mm-hmm.
speaking. So that's one way to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
then so then we convert people from the audience often,
Wow.
either right there in the audience to get us
Mm-hmm.
to meet with them. We get a lot of our business through referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So we've worked with the client, and I'll say a referral is also a close kind of 2 to 3 degree relationship. So I know the person, they work at a company that is one of our ideal clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other way that we get business is that we go out there and we look for it. Where we have a business development team that I lead, and we make phone calls and we send emails. We slide into people's
I love
DMs
it.
on LinkedIn.
Come on.
We sit on airplanes and we talk about what we do,
Yeah.
girl. Always
Yeah.
talking. about the business and how we work with employees, and also sharing the impact that we make with our clients. So
Mhm, mhm.
those are the three biggest ways that people find us and they work with us. We don't always do an assessment, but we can. So depending on
Mhm.
the engagement, the company might want us to come in and do a culture assessment to
Okay.
understand the pulse of what people are dealing with, how they feel, what they're thinking, what some
Mhm.
of the challenges are in the organizations, where there are opportunities to grow on, things that
Mhm.
are working really well. So we don't do assessments just to find problems. We want
Right.
to help companies build off of what they're doing really well already, right? So
Okay.
y'all have a great way of acknowledging and celebrating employees. We're going to acknowledge that, and then we're going to help you fine tune it so that it's a lot more sustainable.
I
Because
love it.
sometimes you'll find some initiatives in companies work because of the person who started it and who's
Yeah.
running it. And as
Mhm.
soon as that person is gone, birthday celebrations are over.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's how we typically, so they find us those three ways. We come in, we might start with an assessment. They might already know, hey, we noticed that we have a group of employees between that have 1 to 6 years of experience. They're good, they're dedicated, but they don't really know how to navigate their careers. They
Right.
need some power skills.
Mhm.
And so we might put together a learning program for them
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
could be one course or multiple courses and different modules that they go through. We might give them assessments. So
Mhm.
there's so many ways to do this work. But one of our key things is that we don't want to be a one and done. We're not an
Thank you.
organization that comes in, delivers a communication workshop, and then we're done. You're done with us, and we're done with
I
you.
see.
Yeah, long-term relationships. We are
Yeah.
commitment. We have
Commitment.
commitments with
Yes.
our organizations and
I love
with our
that.
clients.
I love that. And you have to be, right?
Yeah,
So when you're talking about coming in, you cannot, number one, expect to come into an organization and be one and done in 2 weeks, right? You have to say, okay, this is the plan. This is what we are going to be suggesting for your organization. And here are the steps for
exactly.
each level of employee, from senior leadership on down to the folks who are possibly, the folks that are dealing with the wheels and the sprockets.
Yes.
And I think that that's important. So in your experience working with organizations, one of the things that I have found, let me back up and let me preface this by saying I have worked with agencies like yours.
Mhm.
And the unfortunate thing is most major corporations don't want the long term. They want a quick fix, right? They want you to come in and they're going to give you 2 to 3 weeks. They may give you the senior leaders and they'll say, now fix this.
Mhm.
And does this sound familiar to you?
It does. It does.
Okay. Okay.
They putting out fires. And like
Mm,
I said, we do want to be in a committed relationship with our clients. We want to
yeah.
be partners with them in the process of retaining high performing talent and what I also call high potential talent, right? Folks
Yeah.
that are a little bit overlooked, they just need a little executive coaching, they need the right sort of skill development, and
Mhm.
then over, in a matter of a short period of time, they're high performers and they're
Right.
dedicated to the organization. I think, just like it's interesting to me that companies want they want their employees to perform and to
Yeah.
perform at a very high level that
Absolutely.
creates a profitable organization, right? They're
Mhm.
constantly looking at the number of hours people spend on work and what their productivity is, but they don't always associate that productivity and the loyalty to the
Yeah.
company with an investment in them,
That
right?
part.
So when things get tight, the first thing they pull often is the training, the development, the DEI programming and initiatives and events. Um,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and unfortunately, they know what's interesting is that they know that it impacts employee engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's counter. It's just not. It's really silly. I'm just gonna make it
Yeah.
real basic. It's
Right.
silly that you know this, but you also will pull it. I think employee engagement starts with companies making an investment in in their employees with
Yeah.
topics that they want to learn too. Right.
Absolutely.
So not just the technical things to do your
Mhm.
job.
Mhm.
It's also the building skills that they can use outside the company.
Yes, and I'm a huge proponent of that. One of the things that is so important, even when we're talking about bringing in an agency such as yours, is the onboarding process, right? We don't. I think as corporate individuals, I don't see a lot of people put effort into the onboarding process, and we should. Um,
Mhm.
and outside of that, because most people, what they do is, hey, fill out your W-2s and here, give me your I-9s. This is the history of the company. It's in a folder. Thank you. Goodbye. Go to work. Right. We don't have training for those folks. Development, as you were saying, you don't see a lot of that when it comes to major corporations who are doing millions and millions, sometimes billions of dollars worth of revenue per annum. And we're not seeing a lot of that. And so unfortunately, their turnover is still in the 30 percentile, 30, the 48. I've seen it, 52 every quarter. And you can't turn it around because
Mhm.
we're not really focused on the complete development of every employee.
Yeah.
And so
It's
building a
just like
relationship.
bringing somebody in your house and they're spending the week with you and you never show them where the towels are.
Yeah, that doesn't
Right.
make sense.
It doesn't make sense, right? And so when we bring people into our organizations, this
Yeah.
is large corporations and small companies. We
Yeah.
need to hold their hand and shepherd them through the
There
entire
you go.
process of onboarding so that they understand what's important and what the culture
Hmm.
is, right? So that
Absolutely.
then they can do it for the next person that comes on.
Hmm.
I think we forget about that. We think, oh, we're hiring someone who's experienced. They don't need that. They're coming in to do a particular role and a
Yeah.
job and they have X number of years of experience, but how you greet someone is going to tell you how
Yeah.
long they're going to stay and if they're going to want to, come back.
That's
And
true.
and the numbers I think in turnover are even higher because now we got not just the great resignation, we got quiet quitting.
Quiet
And,
quitting. Come
and
on.
quiet quitting, I don't know, people are defining it differently. I call
Mhm.
quiet quitting going on the leave of absence and still getting paid.
Oh,
Right. So you are quitting your organization. You're taking a step out.
yeah.
Right. You realize I had a client tell us, and we sent this out in our newsletter. We
Hmm.
started the newsletter. She was like, she said, I'm taking a leave of absence and it's called Working While Black.
Oh
And
my.
she left because she just felt overwhelmed by all the microaggressions, all
Mm-hmm.
the bias in the workplace, just the constant having to demonstrate her experience and expertise
Yeah.
after having over 12 to 13 years of experience in her particular profession, all the certifications and the education still is exhausting.
Yeah.
And how I see it, younger professionals are doing it.
Wow.
One of our clients, we went to lunch with them and she was like, oh, we got young professionals taking leaves of absence and then coming back and giving their terms
Ooh.
of how they're going to work with the company. The quiet
Mm.
quitting is not just people leaving.
Yeah.
They're leaving quietly and you're paying them to leave,
Yes.
right? And then they're coming back and some of them may not even, they might come back for a week and
Right.
resign
Right.
or because they've accepted a role somewhere else, but they've already taken 3 or 4 months off
Hmm.
and you've paid them their full salary to do it.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you brought that up. I actually know of several people that are doing that right now. Now, I think that we're also talking about companies who are demanding much more
Yeah.
from professionals than they have in the past, right? So while they are crunching their numbers, they're finding a way to say, okay, we're going to give this to you, we're going to give that to you, we're going to get, and we expect you to continue to do your regular role, but we want you to do this as well. And we want you to do it with the same level of excellence that you did this. And you're sitting there and you're going, okay, that's great. But number one, you're not going to pay me more. You're not, because the money's not there. And then the other thing is how in the world am I going to do this without extending the number of hours that I am giving to this company anyway? And especially if your salary, you're probably already working 60, 70 hours. So now you're going to add an extra 25 to 30 onto that without additional pay. Most people would find a problem. We may do it for a while, but the hard part is that this is where we start to lose people. And do you find with your company that that's when you get the call, when it's time to start putting out those kinds of fires? Or do you have people who are proactive and say, hey, we see this coming. what can we do now to work with you to fix this?
So both. And I think the biggest challenge we have in your example is the number of generations we have in the workplace.
Okay.
So, we have still have some baby boomers in the workplace. You have Gen
Hmm.
X, you have two classes of millennials in the workplace,
Wow.
and then you have Generation Z. And
Hmm.
so, if you take the Generation Z and our younger millennials under the age of 35, but over the age of 27,
Hmm.
they are not living to work, they are working to live.
Yeah.
And so when you have baby boomers who like, hey, it's always worked this way, it's always been
Hmm.
this way,
Yeah.
and we're fine. And then you have what I call Generation X, the
Yeah.
gatekeepers, right? Sometimes we're the gatekeepers as Generation X because we
Yeah.
came up under the baby boomers and it is working. It has
Hmm.
worked. But then we start looking at those older millennials, right? And we're
Yeah.
like, But then some of the older millennials are like, I like what these young folks doing. I
Hmm.
don't want to, I'm not going to be putting that out. I'm not going to be putting
Right.
in 60,
Yeah.
70 work hours, not taking vacation like the baby boomers
Mm.
and the Gen Xers. And so I
Yeah.
think we have all of that happening in the workplace.
Hmm.
And what you find is that our largest and fastest growing population in the workplace is like, I'm here so that I can get my check. I can do good, meaningful work, right?
Hmm.
Because they are a little bit more purpose driven
Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
approach to work. And
Hmm.
then I can go to Thailand. I can
See,
go eat,
come
love,
on.
pray somewhere
Right.
else. Right. So that's what they're focused on their weekends,
Hmm.
not the weekend because I'm ready to start working. I got plans for the weekend. I
Yeah.
have plans in the evening, and I'm
Hmm.
not putting that aside. I want to have a meaningful relationship with my significant other
Hmm.
and my children, right?
Yeah.
Not that the other generations didn't, they
Yeah.
approach it differently because they want to be more present to their
Right.
lives. And I
Right.
think that's the biggest breakdown. And so we get a chance,
Hmm.
and this is the work I love the most. I
Okay.
get a chance to come into organizations and talk to the executives
Hmm.
about, hey, this is what's really happening in your organization
Uh-huh.
that you're missing out on,
Yeah.
because they start name calling. Oh, they're
Uh-oh.
lazy, they just don't want to work. That's not true. They
Mm.
do want to work, they just don't want to be you. They don't want to
Oh,
be missing
oh,
out on the baseball games, the
oh.
plays, the recitals. They don't want to make excuses for that. They want
Mhm.
to be in the seats on time for
Yeah.
their families, their children, their hobbies,
Yeah.
right? I have young professionals, Yvette, who are actually like, there was like, oh, I'm taking piano. I started DJing. I take a watercolor class because I want to learn how to paint.
Yeah.
They're doing all the stuff.
See, come on.
Sewing, they
Hmm.
got a fashion career. They might even have a little side hustle of
Hmm.
social media management. They
Right.
want to
Right.
explore all of themselves.
Yes.
And so companies need to understand that,
Yeah.
because they're not, and I think that's what leads to this gig economy. Right. So when we
Right.
think about companies and how we're going to start hiring and what our workforce is going to look like, I think
Hmm.
we're going to have micro workers, people
Mm.
who want to come in, do 6 months projects for a company in something that they're highly skilled
Yeah.
in, and then live the next 3 months on vacation and
I
then
love
come
that.
back and work another 6 months for a different organization, or maybe even the same
Right.
organization. They're looking for different ways to work and live.
Right. And I love that because number one, it helps to relieve a lot of stress, especially if you're in a high stress job. And even if you're not, because I don't know what anyone else's stress breaker is. So let me not, because mine could be, because I think you and I may be in the same age range or whatever.
Mhm.
We're of the mindset, or at least I was, give me more, give me more, give me more,
Mhm.
because that's how I was raised, is you're going to give 150% because your 150% really is 100% next to you know who, right? And so that's something else to consider too. So we're looking at a cultural difference, and then also looking at the fact that these young folks are like, look, I'm giving you this and this is all you're going to get, but in the end, who wins?
I think the employee is going to win.
Yeah.
I think it's time for American-based companies
Hmm.
to remodel what work looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, only place we have these conversations are in the United States.
Mm.
I mean, there are some countries in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and that they have laws. Like in
Yeah.
Paris,
Mm-hmm.
if you are at an event with coworkers after the business closes, so after work hours, so say your office hours are from 8 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
At 6:15, if you are at an event, you cannot talk legally. You cannot talk about work.
Really? Wow.
Yes. And other countries, they are more focused on the whole employee. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to live, to have
Mm-hmm.
a great life,
Yeah.
and that is supplemented by your work.
Mm-hmm. Supplemented. I
It's
like
not
that.
like I'm working, I'm gonna squeeze in a little fun. So
Mm.
I think US companies really need to rethink it. There's even been studies that companies who've gone to 4-day work weeks, even if
Mm-hmm.
they're 12-hour days,
Yeah.
they're a lot more productive
Mm.
than these 5-day work
Yeah.
weeks. Right. So I think that's the other thing that most people aren't thinking about and that they need to be aware of.
So we're talking about all of this, and I hear that you're well versed in it. Number one, that's clear. Is this something that you communicate to your clients as you're working through all of the things with your clients, and what you are able to present? Do you literally sit down? Because see, I'm curious now. One of the things that I have a friend that does this, something similar to what you do, but not the same. She literally takes the same program and puts another company's name on the product and puts it out. I am not in any way indicating that that is something that you do, because I can't see how the individual would the company itself would win, because every company is so different. So when you sit down and you consult with them ahead of time, is that something that you say, okay, this is how long that we need, um, this is who we need to touch? And here's another thing that I want to definitely talk about before I forget it. I'm gonna write it down. Are you brought in when folks talk union?
Interestingly enough, so there's a whole lot of things in those questions. I'm gonna start with
Okay.
the last one. Most
Okay.
of the companies, most of the work we do are are not with unionized organizations. So we do a lot of work with professional services firms like law firms, public accounting firms,
Hmm.
engineering firms. We do work with Fortune 500 companies, but not always with their union staff. So maybe
Hmm.
sometimes if we're working with people who might work in manufacturing or in plants that could be unionized, um, we're typically working with their leaders who are
Hmm.
not part of the union. So,
Hmm.
so from that standpoint, we don't run into a lot of those sorts of issues. And then we work with governmental agencies.
I see.
We do the stuff that people love to see and love to
Mhm.
be a part of. So we do fun stuff. We're not doing compliance training. We're not doing safety training unless it's
Gotcha.
like psychological safety, which is how are you treating people at work,
Absolutely.
addressing microaggressions. And we do that through the lens of like creating high performing teams, high
Mhm.
performing workplaces. So
Mm.
that's kind of how our work kind of flows. And we do try to tailor, right? Some stuff is just principles, right? These are the best practices in building high performing teams. Now,
Yeah.
how can we wrap your culture, your core values, your organizational core
Right.
values
Yeah.
into this work? So if
Mhm.
there's 5 companies, they might all have different core values. And what we would
Mhm.
do is take, say, our psychological safety, creating high performing teams
Mhm.
training, and wrap those individual core values into the messaging, into the content, because
Mhm.
we want people to really actualize the work. Like, okay, one of our core values at work is integrity. And
Yeah.
so we talk about, well, how do you create integrity and align it with this work? So no matter what the topic is, we take companies' core values and put that in there, their vision statements. We look at their goals. What are they trying to achieve? And we try to communicate that. And then we don't stop there. So we might deliver the training. We take those outcomes
Okay.
and even some of the concerns.
Yeah.
If we deliver a course to 120 people at work, and in each of those sessions there was like 20 say 20 people per class. We've
Mm-hmm.
done multiple sessions over the course of a week.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep hearing a particular theme, like, well, I don't feel like I can disagree with my boss. Say that's the theme that we hear over and
Okay.
over and over again. We
Mm-hmm.
sit down with human resources and the executives, not just the
Mm.
HR group. I
Okay.
want the CEO in there. I want the senior vice presidents, and we report all of that information out.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is we typically survey them going in. And I've
Okay.
been in sessions and I'll have someone say, oh, all of us, our employees know that they can come to us and they can
Mm-hmm.
tell us if anything, they can disagree openly. We
Mm.
have an open, direct
Door
communication
policy.
process. You
Yeah.
like, what up? I sit there and I'm like,
Right.
okay, let me check this out. And we ask those questions and we wrap that into training. And
Yeah.
then we'll find out people who they think, like, oh, our managers know for sure. Our
Yeah.
senior managers know. The senior manager's like, no, I can't disagree. And
Oh,
it's not just one. They'll all be like, no, no, we can't. They'll
right.
start looking at each other. Are you able to? Do you feel comfortable?
Right. Right.
Mm-mm. And then they'll start giving examples like, oh, I remember I was trying to tell something and they just kept cutting me off, over talking me.
Right. Right. Right.
And sometimes what's best about it is that it'd be like the white guy in the room saying these things. So it's
Really?
not just coming from the lens of women or Black professionals in the
Yeah.
workplace.
Right.
You'll find out, oh, ain't no Black people in this session. Ain't no,
Okay.
so that's how we are able to make an impact.
Good. Good. And so once you have finished your session, if you will, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, whatever, and the folks know that you're there, and you get the work done, are you able to come back and assess that there are results? And then once you've assessed those results, whatever your recommendation is to the company, because see, here's something else that I know too, is that you can give all the recommendations in the world. You can take the people through all of the training. But if the company does not continue to reinforce what they paid your organization to do, they'll call you again.
When we're talking about the work that we're going to do,
Yeah.
one of the things that we always ask is, how are you going to measure the transformational changes that you want to see?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to come in and give people these tools
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't see the success.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that through a couple of different ways, either one-on-one coaching,
Yeah.
or group coaching with the people
Yeah.
who are in the training, so that
Mm-hmm.
they can actually take that material and we hold them accountable for it. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're teaching them a communication strategy, how do you start communicating the impact that you make in the organization?
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying, hey, we also want to make sure that you are mentoring and you're finding a
Mm-hmm.
sponsor in the organization and that you're meeting with them regularly. So we help them put that together, kind of really actualize that.
Yeah.
And then we come back and hold them accountable, like either with their individual coach or in a group coaching setting. So if it's 4 people in the group coaching program or in one group coaching kind of like cohort, then they're
Mm-hmm.
holding each other accountable as well. They get workbooks, they get all the tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because for us it's like we're not a discount provider, so
Mm.
we consider our services premium. Companies pay a lot to have us come
Yeah.
in and do this work, and it helps us, right? So
Right.
as entrepreneurs, you want to make sure you have great case studies.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we did this work. The goal was that they were going to make, and I'll give you a specific example. We did some
Okay.
work for a public accounting firm.
Mm-hmm.
They were focused on Black professionals
Mm-hmm.
in 2 classes,
Mm-hmm.
emerging leaders who
Mhm.
had at least 4 to 4.5 years of experience, but no more than 7 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were looking at their more senior leaders, but people who had not made partner in the firm yet. And they wanted those people to go through a program that was going to help them start getting ready to make partner or become
Right.
owners of the firm.
Got it.
And so when we look back and we did these programs, I want to know, well, okay, how many people made partner?
Yeah.
How many people changed their shifted their behaviors
Mm-hmm.
around how they were going to get there? And so we did the program in year 1.
Mm-hmm.
We started it in 2019. interestingly enough, we ended it. We had to come back and do it virtually because
Yeah.
of the pandemic, and then found out that in 2022, by 2022, 5 people had made partner in that program.
Nice.
Right. So that's what, as entrepreneurs, you want to be able to say, oh, what we did actually did impact the organization, and these
Mhm.
are the results. Right. So the individual got a result and the company had a results.
Got
And
it.
guess what? The company's communicating that out. So you
Right.
need to too. You need to be a part of that story. Hey, we
Mhm.
worked with Everyday Lead to do this.
Mhm. I love
And
it.
which goes back to how do we get our clients, right?
Yeah.
So demonstrating our that we have a product that's superior to our competitors is
Mhm.
another way for us to get clients through referrals.
I love that. I love it. And so they're like, hey, you know who you could really call? Call Jeannine's company. She's got you covered. She'll do all of the things and she'll come in and get you guys together. And I love that. I love it. Um, you got a lot of work that you do and you're
Yeah.
speaking. And I know that you have your book out. And every time I look around, you're constantly on the move promoting your business, either like you said, with the lead generation of speaking and so forth. What is that like? Because we're getting ready to slide into these lovely questions that I always ask everybody. What is that like?
Whew. Can I be real transparent?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is really challenging on my personal life.
Hmm.
We just
Hmm.
gonna talk about that part.
Okay.
Like, it is the most challenging part of um, traveling for business,
Yeah.
speaking on stages,
Hmm.
leading a firm, and trying to crush out these goals. And I don't consider myself a hustler or a grinder. Like when people use language like, oh, she hustling, getting the work done and
Yeah.
grinding.
Yeah.
No, we're really strategic, and we're very blessed that God has created a golden pathway for us, and
Yeah.
we just got to do the work.
Right.
But last night I had a conversation, and it went like this: well, you ain't never here anyway.
Oh my. Oh my.
I was like, okay, so I hear, and I can't get defensive.
Right.
And so what I said was, I was here all the month of February. Like I hadn't traveled for like 30,
I
31
get you.
days, 31 consecutive days. And not even
Right.
doing that. I didn't even go to the Battle of the Bands in Montgomery because
Oh
we had,
no.
I didn't even go, right? Because it's at my
Wow.
alma mater. Like I was
Hmm.
here. Right.
Yeah.
So it does take a toll on the personal life. So you
Yeah.
definitely have to have a partner who understands. They
Hmm.
also have to be willing to communicate. So even
Hmm.
saying I ain't never here
Yeah.
was it was a way of communicating. I want you to be here. We got to figure something out,
Hmm.
right? So I have to look into that. So I think that's the downside of it.
Right.
Um, the other thing is everything that is more than I ever imagined.
Mm.
And there's so many things that I really prayed and asked God for.
Wow.
So I didn't have an initial monetary goal around the work that I was going to do when I
Hmm.
transitioned into doing professional development
Hmm.
services and
Hmm.
becoming an executive coach, right? So I was just trying to figure it out. I had another firm, I had owned other businesses, I left a
Yeah.
big high paying career, and
Hmm.
I just wanted to do something that brought me joy. And I wanted to be able to impact and touch the lives of other people in the way that I had been impacted and touched by
Hmm.
like I had some amazing bosses
Hmm.
and managers that I worked with and teams that I worked on
Yeah.
and colleagues that I worked with. And
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to help other people create that. And so I didn't know how that was going to be manifested. So I try not to begrudging the blessing. So in
Mm.
order to do the thing that I asked God to do, it requires me to be in first class or comfort plus on Delta Airlines.
At least it's first class, you
Right,
know?
all these miles, I get these upgrades.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing I would
Yeah.
say is that recognizing, Paulette, that sometimes we ask for things and we don't
Yeah.
know how they're going to be manifested.
Mm.
And so that's what we've been able to do. But I've also been able, because I'm also a caregiver to my brother who
Mm.
lives with me, and I don't have to do much for him, but people use the term caregiver, but I'm
Yeah.
responsible for him.
Right.
And, and he needs that sort of support.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been able to create a beautiful community that when I'm traveling, if Travis needs to get to work, get picked up, I can travel in a way and I feel comfortable, because
Yeah.
if something happens, he gets sick, he needs something right away. I have
Mhm.
amazing neighbors.
Yeah.
And I have an amazing support group of friends who
Mhm.
will drop what they're doing and come and pick him up, take him to work,
That's
come by the
awesome.
house and see what's going on.
Mhm.
And it's big things and little things. One day he couldn't get the garage down, and he was like, "Call Nigel." I was like, okay, let me call Nigel, which is one of
Yeah.
my girlfriends, her husband,
Yeah.
right? And so those sorts of things. So it's
Yeah.
it's a mixed bag, and you
Mhm.
just have to manage it as it comes, not
Mhm.
plan too far in advance.
Right.
Like, we have stuff booked in November, but my
Mhm.
life isn't completely planned through
Look at
November.
that.
Yeah,
See, because life is always what? Life in.
life and
Right. So we don't
yeah,
know, what and so you constantly have to prepare for that, even in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I
yeah,
think, yeah, because life doesn't care. And the other thing that I've also learned in this business space, I'm sure as you have as well, is the business got to eat just like you.
yeah.
So you have
Well,
to.
it's interesting. Someone was asking me if I would be willing to do a big keynote address at a
Mhm.
conference, and I would get exposure. And I
Mhm.
told her, like, I don't need exposure. I need a check,
Period.
right?
That
Because
part.
before I even hit the stage, I have 4 people that need to be paid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got the content designer, the graphic designer, the quality person who reviews it
Yes.
for typos and errors,
Yeah.
my executive assistant who's booking me and getting me into the rooms and the hotel, getting the flights and stuff together, and all
Mhm.
the communication with y'all about
Mhm.
me. Right. So
Yeah.
my admin is communicating with you. And then
Mhm.
that doesn't even include any marketing or
Come on.
PR related
Come
to
on.
the event. And y'all don't want us to sell from the stage.
See.
Right? Y'all don't set up anything where I can say, hey, meet me in the back of the room, or I'm going to be here, come to my table, and we can talk about how I can help your employees in your company.
Right.
I said,
Right.
because otherwise there's no exposure.
Yeah.
And guess what? I was Jeannine K. Brown before y'all found me.
That part. Yes.
There are
Yes.
people who are going to come to your conference because they see me
Yeah.
in the lineup of keynote speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you have to get to a point where you've delivered quality over and over and over again, where you
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable having those kind of conversations with people and helping them see the error in their ways of
Mm-hmm.
wanting you to work for free.
See, and that's not cool. And I and 100%. I
Girl, they
actually
don't even give you good pictures and video
no, they don't. That's another thing. If you get it at all, right?
if
And then
you
if you
get it at
bring
all.
someone with you to do it. Now, I actually have this situation coming up where I am speaking, and y'all want me to purchase my photographer's ticket to come. Yeah, so
That's what I
we will
mean.
be having that conversation where I'm
People, they're not, and I will give them a little grace,
yeah,
because they're not thinking big picture,
right,
right? So
right.
they're thinking numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking access. Number one, my photographer not staying for the whole conference.
That part.
They're going to be there while I'm doing what I'm doing.
And they're out.
But I also say, even with some organizations where they got W-2 employees who
Mm-hmm.
are working the conference, they're not thinking about all the things that you have to
Mm-hmm.
do to,
Yes,
to get there, to be there, to get what you need, right? So you're bringing your
absolutely.
photographer to guarantee you actually get
Quality photos.
quality photographs of
Yeah.
you, and then you hope that the lights are turned up enough so that you can be seen.
Right.
Because I spoke at an event and I was like, it's dark in this room. I was like, okay, it's dark and I'm dark.
Right. Yeah.
Y'all turn, and I did. I was like, I went to the back. I need y'all to turn the house lights up.
Period. Yeah.
So
So
those
it
are the things
sounds
that
like
happen.
yeah, and it sounds like you have to you're constantly taking control of your narrative.
You have to.
Yeah,
You
you do.
have to. Because you'll look
Absolutely.
like a raisinette in a field of other raisinettes in
Right.
their promo material about,
Right.
about
Exactly. And they'll say, "Well, no, we really can't use that." Well, then, how does that impact me? So you
Yeah.
have to also think about those things as well.
And I want to say, if you
Yeah.
are a speaker, and I'm even speaking to myself, I need to update my things. I need to, when someone reaches out to you and wants you to speak, you
Yeah.
need to already have a document already together what your
Already together.
requirements are. Not just
Mhm.
like to get me on stage, it's going to cost 15, 25, $30,000. It's going to cost this. And these are
Mhm.
the things that I need. I need live video. I
Yeah.
need great photos. And
Mhm.
if you can't provide them, I need to make sure my photographer has access. We can put
Yes.
lights up, like all the things that
Yes.
you need,
Yeah.
right? Branding on stage,
Mhm.
all the things.
Yep.
And one, I think that makes it easier, but it does make it easier. And then it lets people know, hey, I'm a professional speaker.
Period.
I'm
Absolutely.
not a public speaker. I'm not just someone who trains and gets up and talks
Mhm.
because I have experience. I'm a professional speaker.
Right. Right. That is a good way to look at it. And you've been doing this so much so that you would absolutely know, and I'm sure that that was through trial and error, and really
Oh yeah.
bumping up and saying, no, I'm not doing that again. No, I'm not, because
Yeah.
this situation here, yeah, I just need you all. I can't. I can't wrap my head around. You want my, yeah. That
You
it.
want all my stuff.
You want all my
And
stuff.
you want to make sure I get good reviews.
Yeah.
Right? So you want people to be engaged. You want them to laugh. You want them to
Yep.
feel a little something.
Absolutely.
But
All.
yeah. So I think we gotta organizations and companies like you got to get to a place where either you get sponsorships underwriting your events,
Mhm.
you're pricing it to a point where you can get people what
Yeah.
they're valued at, right? So
Absolutely. And that's a good point. That's going to lead me to this one. When we're talking, we're wrapping it up. Number one, uh, you need to know your value,
mhm.
and you need to charge for that. And I think people misunderstand the years of experience that you have under your belt, that I may have under my belt, and
Mhm.
they look at, and let's talk about this as we're talking about changing the narrative of how we tell our stories our way here at Brownstone Worldwide. So one of the things that unfortunately we run into as Black and brown individuals is people look at us and they tell our story without our permission, without turning over the paper and saying, oh, she got credentials, she knows what she's talking about, right? Like you experience. So tell our audience, what is that like, and do you walk into the room commanding that, or do you allow your work to speak for itself?
I think you have to do both.
Yeah.
I was in a room the other day and someone walked up to me. She was like, I just want to meet you because you just look like you're somebody. She was like,
Mm,
you're so, and it was funny because I'm just being naturally me. I just
yeah.
walked into the room.
Yeah.
But one of the things I learned from my grandfather, and I think also just growing up in church, presence
Mhm.
is important.
Yes.
And I learned about gravitas at a very young age. My grandfather
Absolutely.
was a very well known pastor in the
Mhm.
city I grew up in Milwaukee. He was the pastor's pastor.
Wow.
And he has such presence. But he
Mhm.
also instilled that in my brothers and I, right? You stand up straight, you look this way. Now that can
Right.
be also taken in other ways, right? You have a lot of people who
Absolutely.
are not comfortable with that sort
Mhm.
of when you walk in and that have that, and so they call you uppity, or you got an air about you. And I used
Yeah.
to get that when I first
Yeah.
moved to the South. But for me, I think is I'm just being myself. So
Right.
showing up, looking the part, feeling
Mhm.
comfortable in my skin. And I do believe because I've put in the work and
Mhm.
I continue to reinvest in myself, to
Mhm.
surround myself with excellent dynamic business owners like you, and learning from other people,
Mhm.
and challenging myself, but also
Yeah.
continuing to work on myself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I tell people I chip away at this sculpture on a regular basis,
Mhm.
refining it,
Mhm.
polishing it,
Mhm.
smoothing out the rough parts. I
Mhm.
try to be very self-aware. So I think that all kind of feeds into when I walk into a room, but it
Right.
also feeds into our work. I
Right.
think there's this whole revolution around increase your prices, increase your prices. I remember when I first started doing coaching outside of the framework of Everyday Lead and
Mhm.
doing business coaching. I love business coaching. I love helping
Mhm.
people go from ideation to launch. And someone's like, well, you're so good at this. Why don't you charge more? Because I didn't have any frameworks. I didn't have any. I felt like if I'm going to raise a price and charge people
Right.
$15,000, $20,000 to work with me, I need to make sure I got some good material.
Yeah.
I got good frameworks. I got things that they can, and I didn't have that. I didn't have videos. I didn't have workbooks. I had a lot of knowledge. I had experience. But for me, right? Because that's what people are going to evaluate you on.
That's right.
So I think you have to do both. You have to say, this is worth this. The value is here, and I'm going to show you where the value is.
Come on.
Right. And then you got to say, I'm not ready to charge this today.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't have the whole value ladder together, although I'm helping clients get to where they need to be.
Yeah.
So there's a balance between the two. And I knew that was not our primary way of, generating revenue. I knew for us, it was like people sought me out and they was like, I really want to work with you because I know you can help me. When we talk, you give me all these great ideas. I said, okay, so let's do 5 sessions together.
Okay.
Pay me this over 5 sessions. So we'll spend 5 hours together and this is what you're going to pay me. And then we'll see what happens. Now, if I get to a point where I was like, oh, I want to do this, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have courses and materials and other coaches. And then I can say, okay, the price tag on that is X number of dollars.
X, Y, yeah. Okay. Okay. Y'all, she has her stuff together. Listen, do not come for or think that you will not pay for the service, which clearly is one with a level of excellence, right?
And I connect with my clients, right?
Yeah.
So if you know how it is when you're working with a coach, it's not just about the black and white of the numbers.
Right.
It's all the gray in the middle of helping you get your mind right, your heart right. So, because you got to have your mind right and the heart right so that the hands can work effectively.
Come on. Exactly.
So that you can execute on the strategies.
Yes.
I've seen people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on programs and coaches and small groups and masterminds and never execute on anything.
Ever.
And that's because this isn't right and this isn't right.
Wow. Folks, I hope that you're writing some of this down. This is gold. I tell people that all the time. Grab your pen and your paper because you're dropping nuggets along the way. Even though we're talking about your business and we're learning exactly what it is that you do with your consultancy firm, you've been dropping a lot of nuggets. And the biggest one that I'm hearing from you is always lead and serve with a high level of excellence, no matter what you do, because that is so important because your reputation precedes you, even before you walk in the room.
And if you always go back to the why, remember I said the why of my business is we wanted to touch and impact people so that they could have careers that they love. And companies they love to work for. And that's not like, oh, we're trying to generate, $6.2 million. Nope. The $6.2 million is going to come if we stay connected to the why.
Come on.
We stay connected to the why, no matter how many business lines or services that we offer, and even the services that we offer. Is it going to help companies retain talent who love what they do and the company they work for? If it's not going to do that, then we're not doing it.
Come on. At least you are honest. And I respect that because we have a lot of people that come out there and I know we have to wrap, but we have a lot of people that come out of the box and they're like, okay, here's our monetary goal. And they forget the reason why.
I remember the year I did that. I was like, okay, we got to get to this number. Like I was so focused on the number. It was probably the most challenging year we had. I didn't love the work. I didn't always enjoy the clients, right? Because we were working with people who we did not align with, trying to get to this number. The number is important. You have to set a goal.
Absolutely.
So you know what you're aiming for. But our number preceded our why. And it got in front of the why. When we keep our why in front and I keep it at the top of mind for me, then no matter where I am, I'm doing that. I could be in a room where I could say there's no buyers in here for us. But if I stay focused on that before I know it, I got a follow-up meeting.
Look
to
at
come
that.
in and do something with a company I never even thought was in the room.
I love that. I love to hear that. I love that. And it's so funny. For every business review that we do, you all say pretty much the exact same thing. You really, really do. And that, my folks who are listening, is so important for you to understand in this culture of get the bag, get the
Yeah.
bag, get the bag. Don't focus on anything else. You can go to any live, you can go to any webinar, and that's what they're driving is get the money, get the money, get the money. But we never hear about retain the people,
Yeah.
teach the people, touch the people. This has been good.
Yeah.
Or we could talk all day.
No.
We really could. We really could. This was
I
so
have to
simple.
just come back.
Yes,
I have
you
to come
need
back.
to come back.
Yeah,
We
because we've
need
been
to
talking
come
about business. We need to talk about life.
Oh man. Listen, if we did that, we would just need to do like a 3 or 7 part series,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? And I do know that we are going to be bringing some other folks back so that we can do a round table of sorts. And so absolutely we'll be inviting you back. I think that would be great so that we can talk
Yeah.
about the life of, and then dot,
Yeah.
dot, dot, and what
Right.
that
And talk about the book and so that
Yes.
would be great. Yeah. If the
Yeah.
audience, if your viewers want me to come back, I'm back.
Okay. Well, then that's a done deal. Okay. I just made the decision. Okay. We're going to send you a link and you need to schedule time to come back and talk about that book
Yeah.
and the speaking engagements that you do and how somehow you balance it all.
Yeah.
Even though, you say that sometimes it gets a little wonky because, you're doing your thing with your family and whatnot, but still at the end of the day, you're making this work.
Yeah.
And and that is to be commended at the
Thank
end of the
you.
day.
Thank you so much.
This has been a pleasure chatting with you. What you have done is you've opened my eyes to what you do, and it helps me to gain clarity on how serious we are about our businesses as Black and Brown individuals,
Yeah.
and how we always deliver with a certain level of excellence. And so what I'm going to do for everybody that is paying attention, listen, this is what you need to do. You want to get in touch with Jeannine K. Brown and her business as an executive coach, go ahead and hit up everyday-lead.com. Everyday-lead.com. You want to reach out directly, you can go to JeannineBrown.com and get all of the information. Reach out to her, get a consultation if you need one to find out whether or not she can support your business and get you guys on the right track to get your employees and your team itself to stick around and become the effective folks that you know that they can be. Last words. What bits of advice can you give someone who is looking to get into this entrepreneurial space?
Ooh. I think the biggest advice I can give someone is to honestly, I hate to sound cliche-ish, is do it.
Do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Mm.
Put a plan together, but don't get lost in the
Yeah.
planning.
Mm-hmm.
Build a community, but don't get in your feelings about the
Mm.
community.
Mm.
Share with others what you're up to,
Yeah,
but don't be disappointed if they don't buy.
that part. Come on. That part.
That's
I
it.
love that. Should do like a book of isms.
Right. What I know for sure is
Yes.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think people bring into entrepreneurship, so many things that
Mhm.
get in the way. And
Yeah.
there would be no Coca-Cola, no Deltas, no UPS.
No.
I'm listing all the big brands here in Atlanta, but
Mhm.
there would be, no Cammy cupcakes, right? There would be none
No.
of those businesses who
Yeah.
had expanded and
Yeah.
sustained themselves.
Mhm.
If they wore their emotions, if they made emotional decisions every day and wore their emotions on their sleeve, you got to find your client. And sometimes your client are
Mhm.
not the people that you know. And sometimes you have to be okay with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys, it's been a pleasure. Once again, this is Jeannine K. Brown of JeannineBrown.com, Everyday Lead Consultancy, and she's going to get your business right. So y'all need to reach out to her and get it together. How about that? Listen, this has been Brownstone's Best Business Review. Go ahead and hang around for about 30 more seconds, Jeannine. We got you covered. We want to chat a little bit after in the green room. But listen, you guys, make sure that you are checking out this amazing sister and everything that she's doing. We're definitely going to be bringing her back so we can talk about that book and all of the isms that we didn't get to ism tonight. So listen, I'm going to get out of here. Jeannine, enjoy the rest of your evening. You guys, this has been Brownstone's Best Business Review. We want to thank everyone for joining us in this amazing conversation with this amazing woman who's making an impact in businesses nationwide. We'll see you for the next edition of Brownstone's Best Business Review.